Haste. The love that stoops. The most theologically dense word in the Hebrew Bible and what it means for your life. The servant's prayer asks for one thing above all others. Not success in the abstract sense. Not favorable weather or an easy journey. Not the ability to find a beautiful woman or a wealthy family. It asks for haste. Ve'yaseh haste Adonai Avraham. Show covenant love to my master Abraham. The word haste, Chet, Samech, Dalet, three Hebrew letters that contain within them a universe of theological meaning that has occupied the greatest minds of Jewish and Christian scholarship for 3,000 years. We devoted a section to haste in our earlier studies. But haste is one of those words that cannot be fully exhausted. Every approach to it opens a new dimension. In this study, we go deeper still. The root and its secret. The love that bends down. The etymology of haste is contested, as many Hebrew root etymologies are, but the scholarly consensus points toward a family of ancient Semitic words that carry the sense of bowing, inclining, stooping. The Akkadian cognate hasadu and the Ugaritic cognate hsd both carry associations with bending toward, with an inclined motion from height toward depth. This linguistic foundation, if it is original, gives haste one of the most remarkable theological profiles in the history of human language. The word for God's covenant love, the word that defines his most fundamental orientation toward the creatures he has covenanted to himself, has embedded within its prehistoric linguistic DNA the image of stooping. Haste is the love that bends down. The love that descends. The love that does not remain at its own elevation but inclines toward the one who needs it. This is kenotic love, love that empties itself, that makes itself accessible, that lowers itself to the level of the one in need. It is not the love that requires the beloved to rise to its level before it will engage. It is the love that goes down to where the beloved is. It is the love that the Christian tradition later articulated in the doctrine of the Incarnation, God becoming human not as a temporary condescension to be quickly reversed but as the permanent, total, unreserved entry of the eternal into the temporal, the infinite into the finite, the holy into the broken. Amo Nikolainen, the Finnish theologian whose studies of the Septuagint's rendering of the Hebrew love vocabulary have been foundational in modern scholarship, shows that the Greek translators chose eleos, mercy, compassion, to render haste. The word eleos shares a root with elion, olive oil. And olive oil in the ancient world was the universal medicine, poured into wounds to soften and heal and protect, smoothed over parched skin to restore suppleness and prevent cracking, used to preserve stored food against decay. Eleos, the mercy of haste, is the love that pours itself like oil into the wound. It does not observe the wound from a clinical distance. It enters it. It permeates it. It does the work of healing from the inside. Hildegard of Bingen, the 12th century German Benedictine abbess, mystic, composer, theologian, and natural philosopher, who was in some respects the most comprehensive intellect of the medieval world, writes in her Seviers of what she calls viriditas, the greenness, the living moisture, the sap of divine life moving through the created order as moisture moves through the roots of a tree. Hildegard argues that everything created was made to be green, to be alive with the divine vitality that God breathed into creation in the beginning, and that sin and suffering and spiritual deadness are forms of drying out, of the viriditas being withdrawn from the created order. When haste touches a soul, Hildegard writes, the soul turns green again. She uses the Latin verb reviescit, it becomes green once more, it recovers the sap of divine life, it remembers what it was made to be. The servant's prayer for haste to be shown to Abraham is a prayer for this viriditas, for the living moisture of covenant love to move through the dried out circumstance of Abraham's covenant hope and make it green again through the gift of the appointed bride. Haste as covenantal structure. Nelson Gluck and the Relational Ethic. The 19th century Hebrew scholar Nelson Gluck spent decades in sustained research on haste and concluded in his landmark study that haste is not primarily an emotion. It is a relational ethic. It is the disposition that flows naturally from covenant relationship, the behavior that covenant partners owe to one another by virtue of the covenant they have entered. When the king shows haste to his vassal by coming to the vassal's aid in distress, he is not performing an act of optional generosity above and beyond the call of duty. He is fulfilling the covenant obligation that his position of superior power creates. When God shows haste to Israel, he is not performing a random act of kindness that Israel should be grateful for but cannot count on. He is fulfilling the structural obligation of the covenant he entered at Sinai when he said, "I will be your God and you will be my people." This changes everything about how we hear the servant's prayer. When he asks for haste toward Abraham, he is not asking God to be kind on this particular occasion if he happens to feel like it. He is asking God to be true to what he already committed to be. He is calling on the covenant fidelity that God entered voluntarily when he appeared to Abraham in Genesis 15 and passed between the pieces of the covenant sacrifice and spoke the promises that cannot be broken. The prayer for haste is the prayer of the person who knows the covenant is real and who is asking God to act like what he has declared himself to be. This is not presumption. It is faith operating at the level of knowledge, the knowledge of God's character built up through the covenant history. The Vulgate renders haste as misericordia, mercy rooted in a bowel-deep empathy, compassion from the visceral core. The word miserere in Latin is related to miseria, misery, wretchedness, and the prefix mis transforms it into an empathetic resonance with misery. The capacity to feel what the wretched one feels, to be moved by what moves them, to respond to their distress from the deepest place of one's own being. Misericordia is the mercy that is not detached or clinical or procedural but embodied, emotional, viscerally compassionate. Jerome's choice of misericordia for haste captures the warmth of the Hebrew word even as it loses the covenantal structural dimension that Gluck identified. The Targum Onkelos, the authoritative Aramaic translation of the Torah, renders haste as tuva, goodness, generosity, benevolence, emphasizing the active, giving dimension of the word. Together, Elios, misericordia, and tuva form a partial portrait of haste, the oil that pours into wounds, the visceral compassion that feels what the suffering one feels, and the active benevolence that gives what the needy one needs. Meister Eckhart and the Seelenfinkeln. Where haste reaches. Meister Eckhart, the 14th century German Dominican mystic and speculative theologian, approaches the question of how divine love reaches the human soul through his remarkable concept of the Seelenfinkeln, the little spark of the soul. Eckhart argues from both philosophical and experiential grounds that there is a point in the human interior that is so deep, so far below the surface of consciousness and personality in the accumulated history of experience and wounding, that it is essentially untouchable by the forces that damage everything above it. He calls this point the grunt, the ground, of the soul. In the grunt, Eckhart argues, the image of God resides in its most essential and indelible form. No trauma, however severe and however long, can reach the grunt. No sin, however habitual and however deep, can extinguish the Seelenfinkeln. No wound, however precisely aimed and however cruelly delivered, can destroy the innermost point where the soul and God are in their most fundamental contact. This is among the most therapeutically important theological claims in the entire Christian mystical tradition, and it becomes even more powerful when read in connection with the servant's prayer for haste. The servant is asking for God to show haste to Abraham, to bring the covenant love to bear on the situation with the full engagement of the divine nature. And Eckhart would say that when haste moves toward a soul, it moves not toward the surface but toward the grunt, toward the deepest, most essential, most indestructible point of the interior. Haste pours all the way down. It reaches the Seelenfinkeln. It touches the place that the wound could not touch. And from that innermost, inextinguishable place of divine human contact, the healing begins to rise upward through all the layers of damage, bringing Viriditas, Hildegard's greenness, to every stratum of the person that the trauma had dried out. This is the medicine for the deepest and most specific wound that any person can carry, the conviction that the damage in them is too deep for healing to reach, that the wound has gone all the way down to the bottom and has destroyed even the foundation. Eckhart says, no, the wound did not reach the bottom. The wound cannot reach the bottom. The Seelenfinkeln is still there. God is still at the grunt of your soul. And the haste that the servant is praying for at the well is the haste that pours all the way down, that reaches the spark, that meets the divine image at its most essential and undefeatable point, and fans it back to flame. Haste in the body. Somatic integration and the felt sense of divine love. The therapeutic dimension of haste must not remain in the realm of intellectual theology. The documents you have shared draw on the somatic tradition of contemporary trauma therapy, specifically the work of Peter Levine, whose somatic experiencing model has revolutionized the treatment of trauma, and Bessel van der Kolk, whose neurobiological research has demonstrated that trauma is stored not only in the mind but in the muscular and nervous system of the body. The body keeps the score, as van der Kolk's seminal work is titled. The body holds the wound. And the body must participate in the healing. This means that the healing word of haste must not simply be understood cognitively. It must be received somatically. Let me invite you to try something as you hear these words. Allow your body to receive the truth of haste rather than simply your mind. Bring your attention to your chest, the sternum, the cardiac region, the physical location that most people associate with the felt sense of emotional reality. Notice what is there. Is there a constriction, a holding, a tightness that has been present for so long you have stopped noticing it? This is where many people carry the body-stored experience of love being conditional, of belonging being uncertain, of being cared for inconsistently or not at all. Now allow the image of the servant's prayer to enter that place. Not as a theological concept but as a sensory reality. The servant is at the well. He is praying for haste, for the covenant love that stoops, that pours like oil into the wound, that reaches the Seelenfinkeln, that makes things green again. And this haste is being prayed not only for Abraham but for you. For the specific shape of what you carry. For the exact location of the wound. For the specific temperature and texture of the dryness that has settled into your life in the seasons when the Viriditas was absent. Let the prayer be for you. Let the haste pour into the specific place in your chest that needs it. Let the body begin to receive what the mind alone has only acknowledged. This is not a technique. This is not self-manipulation. This is the activation of the somatic channel of reception for what is already true, that the God of the covenant has shown haste to you, is showing haste to you, will show haste to you, not because of your performance, not in proportion to your faithfulness, not contingent on your theological correctness, but because He has entered covenant with you through the blood of Jesus, and the haste is the structural obligation of the covenant He entered freely and will not break. You do not need to earn it. You need to receive it. Into the body. Into the chest. Into the specific wound that has been waiting for exactly this quality of oil. If the teaching has entered a place in you that other things have not reached, if the word has named something in you that has been waiting to be named, healed something that has been waiting to be healed, ignited something that has been waiting to be ignited, then let it continue its work. Do not hold it at the level of the mind alone. Let it descend. Let it become the thing your body knows, your spirit trusts, your daily life expresses. Let it change how you pray, how you serve, how you receive, how you wait. Let the servant's posture become your posture. Let Rebecca's generosity become your generosity. Let the well of the living God become the well you return to every evening, without fail, knowing that the appointed encounter is always possible in the place of faithful, consistent return. Subscribe to this channel. Like this video. Share it without hesitation with every person in your life who is thirsty, who is walking through their desert, carrying their camels, wondering if the well is real. Tell them it is real. Tell them the servant is already there. Tell them the evening is golden. Tell them prayer has already been prayed and the answer is already on its way down the path from the city gate. Write to us at christ4life143@gmail.com. We are here for prayer, for the ongoing conversation, for the community of souls who take the living word seriously because the living word has taken them seriously. Stay tuned for the next video. Join us next time as we continue verse by verse through this inexhaustible covenant story, the story that is still happening, still unfolding, still finding its appointed ones at the wells of their ordinary and extraordinary lives.